Good day, Grace Keepers. Welcome back to Daily Dose of God. I'm Joe. In our last study, we walked through the incredible prophecies of Daniel and the when, the timeline of world history, and the precise calendar for the Messiah. But a timeline is just a countdown to an event, and at the center of that event is a person. That brings us to the question for today. Who is the Anointed One? Who is this king at the center of God's plan? To answer that, we have to turn to the prophet Isaiah, who gives us the most detailed portrait of the Messiah in the entire Old Testament. What I discovered in Isaiah is what's often called a dual portrait. He paints two seemingly opposite pictures of the coming king, and understanding both is the key to unlocking the entire story of the Bible. The first portrait Isaiah paints is found in chapter 53, and it's heartbreaking. It describes the Messiah's first coming, and it's the opposite of what everyone would expect from a king. Isaiah says this servant would have no physical beauty or royal majesty that would naturally attract people to him. He describes him as being despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering who was familiar with deep pain. But then, Isaiah reveals the stunning reason why this servant suffers. In verse 5, he writes these incredible words. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. Isaiah is telling us 700 years before the cross that the Messiah's suffering would be for us. He would take our place and our punishment. Then he uses that unforgettable image of a lamb being led silently to the slaughter, showing his innocence and his willing submission to God's plan. This first portrait is of a humble, rejected servant who voluntarily dies for the sins of others. But that's only half of the picture. Isaiah also gives us a glorious portrait of the Messiah as the reigning king. In chapter 9, he makes this famous proclamation. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatest of his government and peace there will be no end. This isn't a suffering servant. This is a divine king who rules an eternal kingdom. And Isaiah chapter 11 describes what his kingdom on earth will be like. It'll be like a time of perfect justice and righteousness, a time when creation itself is restored. He gives that beautiful picture of the wolf living with the lamb and the lion eating straw like the ox. This describes a literal, physical peace on earth under the Messiah's perfect reign. And I don't know about you, but I am excited. I joke with my husband all the time because we're such bird lovers, animal lovers really, but if we have duties on that new earth, I hope mine is something to do with the animals. I'm just saying. So how do we fit these two puzzle pieces together? the suffering servant, and the reigning king. This is the great mystery Isaiah reveals. The Messiah had to first come as the humble servant, to be pierced for our transgressions, and to pay the price for our sin. Because he accomplished that mission, he will return in glory as the conquering king to establish the everlasting government of peace. So one had to happen in order for the other to be possible. Daniel gave us the timeline, and Isaiah reveals the identity and dual mission of the king at the center of it all. In our next study, we'll turn to the prophet Ezekiel and see the incredible visions he was given of a great future invasion of Israel and of a magnificent new temple where God's glory will dwell. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Don't forget the free downloadable PDF study guide. And speaking of the study guide, I apologize, thanks to my favorite viewer who gave me a heads up. I realized that I forgot to put that study guide somehow in the description, but I promise you, I will do my best to make sure that doesn't happen again. It's a valuable resource, and I hope you're following along with us because we've got a long way to go and a lot to learn. So I can't wait to see you here next time, and I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day. Any questions or comments, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you here next time.